Welcome, everybody. This is the last session of day one of the virtual summit that everyone needs right now. I have Sarah with me, and she is going to walk us through some beginning steps of mindfulness and meditation. I'm new to this, so I'm in the same boat as probably all of you guys. So this is going to be really cool, really interesting. And I think it's also good timing, just obviously with everything going on, but also entering a new month tomorrow, being able to just kind of know that this is our reality right now for a minute, but having the tools to kind of cope with this unfortunate reality. So yeah, I'm excited. We are recording the session. If you guys want to share it with folks or keep it for yourself, that's great. I will send the recording out to you guys in an email along with a survey if you don't mind completing that as well. And if you guys have any questions or any comments after we do this first little portion that Sarah will guide us through, there is the chat function, and I think the Q&A is open as well. So feel free to utilize those functions here at any point. And with that said, my name is Maggie Carruth O'Connor. I'm in Chattanooga. I used to live in Atlanta, but I'm really excited to be able to provide value for everybody in this way. And it's just kind of a neat thing that everyone came together so quickly. So I'm just really excited. And I'll let Sarah introduce herself. So Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, great. Thank you guys so much for hopping on. My name is Sarah Bristow, and I'm a health and wellness coach. I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia. My practice is called Growing Grounded, and I work with teams and individuals to help them, to support them in developing foundation for personal and professional growth. My journey actually began in the classroom several years ago, and working with elementary school kids. It's kind of grown from there. So I do a lot of wellness events with corporates. I do a lot of work with schools. I work with a lot of individuals. So the scope of what I do is pretty broad, but speaking about mindfulness and meditation is really kind of where my heart is. And I love this so much because I just believe with all my heart it's something that we all need. And we learn to live our lives with a little bit more awareness. We start to see things through a different lens. And it kind of changes our whole mindset. So super excited to be here with you guys today. My biggest goal for today is to help you all really understand what mindfulness is, clear up any misconceptions, touch on a little bit the difference in mindfulness and meditation, and most importantly, help you bridge the gap between knowing what it is and actually putting it into practice. I think at this point, we've all, read about it in a magazine at Whole Foods or listened to a podcast about it or heard the word so many times. But there's still so much uncertainty as to what mindfulness is and how it can really benefit us. So that's my goal for you. I love to start every presentation with, or every session with an actual experience. I used to always say to folks, who has experience with mindfulness and meditation and I realized that what that did really quickly was to create a division between the people who have and the people who haven't. So I don't do that anymore. I don't ask that question anymore. Instead, I start with an experience. So at the end of it, we can say, hey, we've all dabbled with this before. We're all on the same page. So I like to level the playing field. So follow along with me. If you're totally new to this, I ask you just to be along for the ride. If you do have experience with mindfulness or a mindfulness meditation, then I hope you enjoy this. I was telling Maggie at the start of this, you could do the same thing every single day and have a totally different experience because we bring a different set of emotions, a different set of conversations, different transitions to, every point throughout our day. So all that to say, I invite you, if you're comfortable with it, to just close your eyes and to allow yourself to just get present in the moment. Start to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as you do that, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the nervous system that allows your body to rest and digest. So work to let go of any expectations about what this should look like or if you're doing it right, and allow yourself the opportunity to just have an experience. And as you're breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, let your breath be the anchor, be the thing that holds you right here in the present moment. Breathing is one of the only action, or is the only action we can do that's both voluntary and involuntary. And it actually bridges the gap between our bodies and our minds. So when we hear people talk about the mind-body connection, just tapping into your breath is one of the most powerful and instantaneous ways to feel that connection. So simply be with your breath right now. Think of it as a little lullaby for your body, a little love note, and allow yourself to be in this place of rest and digest and heal rather than a place of high stress. And as you do this, you might notice that your to-do list and all the things on your mind, they might start to float away, or they might still be right there with you. Well, whatever's going on is exactly how it's supposed to be. So you're simply sitting with your own breath right now. If you start to get wrapped up in a thought, wrapped up in anything, just come back to your breath. Focus on the in and the X. Inhale, exhale. Now, keeping with the eyes closed and keeping with the same deep breathing that's allowing you to be in the parasympathetic state, shift your attention away from your breath and start to focus on your thoughts. And just become aware of your thoughts and notice your thoughts. We have a tendency to ignore thoughts and to let them come up and not really give them the attention that they need. So let the thoughts float in and out like clouds in the sky, and just let them come up. Notice what they are. Notice that you're having a thought, and then just let it go. Our thoughts come and go, and that is the nature of impermanence. And the challenge comes in seeing our thoughts and honoring them and not getting completely wrapped up in them and not letting them totally take over. You might be experiencing the monkey mind where your thoughts are all over the place, and that is okay. If you get wrapped up in a certain thought or it keeps coming up time and time again, sit with that thought and try and take a deep dive and take a look at what that's telling you. Because the more we can acknowledge it, the less tight of a grip it has on us. And if you get totally wrapped up in a thought, hit the reset button, come back to your breath. Now, keeping with the eyes closed and keeping with the same deep breathing, shift your attention again away from your thoughts and into your physical body. And notice how you're feeling. Maybe you're feeling kind of fatigued here at the end of the day. Maybe you're energized. Just take note of how you're feeling and become aware. And let yourself feel whatever it is that you're feeling. Relax your shoulders a little bit. Let your shoulders fall away from your ears. Relax your jaw and take the tongue off the roof of your mouth. And let your eyes be closed really softly. Think about taking the wrinkles out of your forehead. And see where else you can invite in a little bit more ease into your body. Where else can you invite in a little bit more relaxation? Once you feel nice and relaxed, we're going to take one more shift. So keeping the eyes closed, bring your attention back to your breath. You've paid attention to your thoughts. You've paid attention to your physical body. And now come all the way back to your breath. And notice how it feels after this little mindfulness meditation, this meditation of awareness. Notice if your breath feels any different now than it did before. Maybe it feels just the same. You'll start to bring a little bit of awareness back to the physical body. Maybe wiggle your fingers and toes just a little bit. Roll your shoulders up and back. And blink your eyes a few times. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. The first time I ever led that, I was in an auditorium of like 150 people, and there was a guy on the front row, and he couldn't close his eyes. He spent the whole time like kind of peeking through like that. So I hope you were able to kind of be in the moment with that. That right there is a just mini mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness is the way that we live our life. And a meditation is more of a formal practice. So the two blur together a little bit when we do a meditation that allows us to become more aware. The actual definition of mindfulness is a present moment awareness. So before you jump to that place of, my thoughts were all over the place, I feel like a crazy person, or I couldn't sit still, or I couldn't relax, before you jump to that place, because we're all so quick to judge ourselves, ask yourself if you were aware. Were you aware of your breath? And were you aware of your thoughts? And were you aware of any physical sensations in your body? And if the answer is yes, then that was a success. What we find happens is we experience these practices, and then we walk away from them, and life sort of gets going again and kind of slaps us in the face, and you feel like everything you've done is now lost. But that's actually not the case. The more we build these practices into our life, we see a more residual effect of them. So maybe, maybe you go get in the car right after this, and you do get stuck in that traffic jam. I guess that's not the same right now, but let's say that something does happen. You have to take a work call or something, and you feel like all the good of what you just did was lost. Just keep in mind that, the more you start to do these practices, the more you're really taking care of yourself, and the more of an impact it's going to have on your life long term.
I have a question for you, Sarah.
Yeah.
In an effort to get to that point where it becomes more of a kind of instinctive thing, what do you say to the people who are like, I have every intention, because it's probably me and maybe some others, I have every intention to be more mindful. I do consider myself to be a fairly self-aware person in terms of my emotions and how my emotions affect my physical body. But I want to transition into more of kind of that, let it just happen instinctively, if that makes sense. So how do you do that? Is it just build time into your day and make it a habit, and then over time it becomes instinct? What can you comment on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think the more we do anything, the better at it we get, right? So if you want to be a professional basketball player, it takes a lot of practice. If you want to be an artist, it takes a lot of practice. And what we find is that when we can practice these things when we're not in the heat of the moment, then when you are in the heat of the moment, it's a little bit more instinctual, And so many people they'll buy the books, they'll download the podcast, they'll buy the journal, and then they don't do anything with it, So you have to do the work. But really what you start to see is the ripple effect. So, for someone who's getting started, who's wanting it to be more of a part of their daily life, I like to tell people, and I'm going to touch on this in a few minutes, I like to find pick one area of your life that you're actually already pretty intentional with. You're already intentional with. So for some people, it's like eating the meal as a family, like sitting down together. And that's like a time when they know that they're going to do that same thing every day. For some people, it's their nighttime routine. They know that they're going to like wash their face, brush their teeth, get in bed, read for 15 minutes, and then lights out. So pick something that you're already doing intentionally. So there's the action behind it is with intention. And notice how that makes you feel. And when you realize that those little pieces right there that you're doing intentionally, those are mindful moments. Once you recognize that you're already doing it, it's easier to say, okay, how can I level up? Like, where can I bring in another one of those little mindful moments? And if you come back to your why, why do you do that nighttime routine? Why do you sit down at dinner every night? Or why do you, say, when you take that first sip of coffee in the morning, like, why do you do that? It's because it feels good. Then that helps you be like, okay, if I can do it in this part of my life, I'm going to do it in this next part of my life. It becomes more second nature when we're more consistent with it and we're able to access the tools when we feel really confident in how we're going to use them.
Love it. Cool.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So, I always love to say to people, like, what is mindfulness to you? So answer that question in your head. What is mindfulness to you? Right. And like the textbook definition is a present moment awareness. So it's about being aware of where you are and what you're doing without distraction. It's moving away from this concept of I can multitask. I can write this blog post and, eat my lunch and listen to this podcast and type this email and do all these things. That's great, but you're actually not doing any of them well. Like you're not doing any of them to your fullest potential because it's called continuous partial attention. You're giving a little bit of attention all these places. Where stop and think about the fact if you could be all in with one thing, it kind of comes back to that concept of time batching. If you could be all in with this and then move on from it and then all in from this, there's a lot more intention that goes into it and you could probably be more productive and your work would be, you would see the results of it in the work that you're doing. So I love to ask this question. Number one, so I want everyone to answer these in your heads. Number one, what are you doing right now at this moment? And number two, what are you thinking about? So what are you doing right now and what are you thinking about? And if your answer to number one and number two are different, then you're distracted. So don't judge yourself because mindfulness is all about, non-judgment. Look at it with curiosity and think, why is it that I'm thinking about this other thing and not what I'm actually doing right now? Studies are showing us that when we are actually thinking about what we're doing, we're happier. And they're also showing us that we live half of our lives distracted, half of each day distracted. So basically that translates to like half of your life we're living distracted. So we think about mindfulness as like a singular focus, paying attention to what we're doing. It sounds really simple, but the way of the world makes it really, really hard, right? Because we're always plugged in with technology. There's always, external sounds around us. There's so many things that we could be doing at a different time that the way of the world is making it hard to just do one thing at a time. It was easier to be mindful like back in the day, I work with kids all the time and people are like, oh my gosh, is it so hard working with kids? And I'm like, it is easier to work with a 5-year-old than it is to work with like the CEO of Chick-fil-A because this guy is really busy all the time. He has emails, he has family, he has, text messages, he has meetings. Whereas this 5-year-old is using the 5 senses. What do I see? What do I smell? What do I taste? What do I hear? And so it's easier when you're not distracted. And again, it's really hard. But it's all about encountering the thoughts that you're having and the emotions you're feeling and the sensations that you're, feeling without judgment. We have to suspend the judgment, and it's not good or bad. It just is what it is. And so we're sort of like meeting all of these things head on, and we have to look at it through this lens of curiosity and be like, okay, why am I feeling this way? Why is my mind constantly wandering? And I don't have the answer to that, but what you'll find is that you start to find those answers from within. This whole concept is really abstract. And when I work with clients who are like, what are you going to make me do? I'm like, I can't make you do anything. I can ask these probing questions. And I can sort of, make some recommendations, but until you're going to like do the work and actually kind of dig in, it makes it harder, you know? I'm going to answer this question. Do you think more self-isolation will make it easier or harder to be mindful? On the surface, it seems like it would be easier, but in reality, I feel like a lot of people are feeling even more pressure to be productive. Molly, amen. I was just listening to a podcast yesterday. Jesse Itzler and Sarah Blakely, who I love. I've done some speaking engagement with Spanx. And they're both run these great, amazing businesses. And they were on the Lewis Howes School of Greatness podcast. And Jesse was like, day one of quarantine, I was going to like organize every photo on my iPhone. And I was going to clean out my garage. I was going to do this. I was going to do that. And he's like, you want to know what I've done? I've done none of it. And I was like, I love the honesty there, you know? So Molly, to answer your question, I think that in theory, this isolation is allowing us more time, but it's still up to us to say, how are we going to fill that time? You know, when you go to a yoga class and they talk about creating space, you can create this space, but what are you going to do with the space? Is it physical space? Is it emotional space? The space is created, but it's up to you what you're going to do with it. So this is obviously a little bit different than that. I think that it could be easier because we have less distractions. Okay. All that to say, everything is on Zoom right now. Every communication we have is not face-to-face. It's over the phone or, you know, FaceTime or whatever. We're so tied into our emails right now. So I think in that sense, it's harder. I think you're exactly right. A lot of people are feeling this pressure. So I think that what you can do for yourself is ask yourself the question, what are my needs right now? And what can I do to really meet my needs? If your goal is to be more mindful, pick one way that you could be more mindful. Maybe that's turning your phone off at 8 o'clock and being like, I am done with bings and dings and distractions until 8 a.m. Maybe that's for you. You know, the connection over with the technology right now, we really couldn't live without it, but it's still exhausting and it doesn't give us the time to like hit the reset button. You know, when we would do that if we were not kind of like where we are. So I think it's all about like the intention that you put behind things. So I'm just kind of going in circles here, Molly, but I really think that, you know, taking the pressure off yourself, like we're always the ones to put the pressure on ourselves. So take the pressure off yourself to do the things that you feel like you should be doing and ask yourself what you really want to be doing. You know, there's the things that we need to be doing. Like we have to do the work, we have to work, and we have to take care of the household things and whatnot. But when it comes to sort of like what else needs to be done, take away the fluff, like sit with your thoughts for a minute and see what keeps coming up and see how you can use that to drive your intention and say, if this keeps coming up, this needs my attention and I need to sort of pay a little bit more attention to it. You know, reflection, when we reflect on things, that's really where the growth happens. But we're really quick to not want to reflect because we don't want to do the work. You know, as a society, we just sort of like push things away because we're like kind of going to do the work, but we're not really going to do the work, you know? So take a deep dive. Like, what is on your mind? What are the things? What are the priorities? What are really the priorities? And try and use this time to get rid of the fluff. Don't put the pressure on yourself because there's already a ton of pressure on ourselves to like keep ourselves well and to maintain these other things that we're doing. So I think that just to start, you know, pick one way that you can be more mindful and then allow that to feel really good and allow that to feel like natural in the way that you're doing things. And that might help you not put some of that pressure on yourself if you're actually giving yourself what it is that you really need.
I have a question, and thank you for going deep into that. You know, with changing the subject a little bit, moving more into meditation, it seems like to me that it's like mindfulness is kind of key, right? And then meditation is kind of like the next level. Mm-hmm. So how do we do that? How do we transition once we feel like we are really putting intention behind as many things as we can in a day? And we're like, okay, I want to be in that like glorious meditative state, but how do I get there?
Yeah.
What would you say?
Great question. I really think that you know, when you're ready to like kind of bridge the gap, like there's so many different types of meditation. And this is another area, Molly, like you were saying, where we continue to put pressure on ourselves and we're like, okay, am I like dressed right? Am I sitting right? Do I have the right cushion? Is everything set up? And again, you got to just like do it. You got to just sit in. So if you're interested in having more of a formal practice, I encourage you just to like find a space where you're free of distraction, because I think that's really important. I personally don't use the apps because if my phone is there, I find it to be a distraction. So I just sit down somewhere, wherever I am. You don't have to be on a cushion. You don't have to be wearing white. You don't have to be sitting in lotus, none of those things. And just close your eyes and just allow yourself to tap into your breath. Like use that as the first step into like starting your meditation. A lot of times people will think, benefits of meditation start when we do it for like 3 minutes. So 3 minutes, 7 minutes, 11 minutes, etc. But as soon as we put a timer on ourselves, we're like, okay, am I there yet? Where am I? How many minutes has it been? So don't worry about time when you get started. Like a lot of people are like, I'm going to do this for 20 minutes a day. That's fantastic if you can do that, but take the pressure off yourself to feel like you have to do it for a certain time or it has to look a certain way. And just start with it. Just start, with paying attention to just your breath. Like if you like what we did in the beginning, just breathe for however long it feels good. And when you come around, just sort of like sit for a minute, reflect on it, and then go about your day. If you liked paying attention to your thoughts, jump in and do just that. Just do a thought awareness meditation where you're just paying attention to your thoughts. Like if you feel stress and you don't know where it's coming from, sit with your thoughts. Because a lot of times when we acknowledge our thoughts, it actually turns the volume down on our amygdala, which is the part of our brain that kind of is in charge of all of our raw emotions. Maybe you like physically relaxing your body. Like maybe you felt like the stress was like leaving your body there. So if you want it, again, mindfulness is your way of life, whereas there's more intention behind a meditation. A meditation is more of like a formal practice. But still, you just have to kind of jump in and get going, and then if you find you want to listen to something more guided, you could find something that you could listen to. But really just letting go of the expectation of how it should be, taking the pressure off yourself and setting some time aside for it and committing to it,
Yeah, I think it sounds like it's really, there isn't a playbook for people. It's what works best for you as an individual, right? Because we're all so different. And so it's figuring out what that is. And I love that you keep harping on pressure, or don't put pressure on yourself, because first of all, it's really intimidating. At least for me, I'm speaking from personal experience. Like I don't even know how to dabble into meditation. I don't even know where to start. And so there's just kind of automatically that pressure of like, well, who's a reliable source? Like, what do I don't know who's reliable or not. I don't know if this is the correct way. And it sounds like you don't need to even worry about that. It's as simple as going back to your breath for 2 minutes. Right. And anyway, so I love all the things that you've been saying. We're at 4:00 and this has like flown by.
I know. It always
I can't
does.
believe it. I would love for you to send me individually, like offline, some resources, because I'm going to send that email to everybody with the recording and with the survey. So I'm sure people would appreciate some extra resources coming from you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if anybody has any other questions, feel free to ask them now. Otherwise, I'm just going to say thanks. And
thanks for having me.
Awesome. I think this was a great way to end the first day. Great way to start May, since tomorrow, can you believe it, is May? That is nuts.
Yeah. Think about it. People call it mayhem. One of my kids' principals was like, it's mayhem. I'm like, let it be mindful May. Like, why not,
Yeah, I love that.
So let it be mindful May. Pick one little thing you can do and then just let it ripple. See the beauty of it.
Love it. Okay. Thank you so much, Sarah. I will send that email to everybody later, but thank you guys for being here, and day 2 is tomorrow. So thanks for tuning in, everyone.
All right. See you guys. Have a good night.
Bye, Sarah.